G'day guys, my name is Wildcard. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for watching my stupid content. I really do appreciate it. Ireland versus Italy, Six Nations, Round 3, 2022. Normally, I don't review Italian games. Yeah, but this game, there's a lot to talk about. It's on the news all over the place. So I feel like I really need to have a talk about this. I do feel compelled to talk about this game. And the thing that I was most upset about this game, not because of the red card, the confusion, the law, I was mostly disappointed about the extremely poor and unprofessional commentary from this game. Like, I cannot believe how these commentators get paid money to just bash and complain the game. Like, constantly telling me that I shouldn't be watching the game, essentially. How is this a thing? How do these people, like, it's just awful. Absolutely awful. And like, it completely ruined my experience for the game. Sure, the red card, there was a lot of confusion. When there is confusion, it's your job as commentator to explain the confusion, to explain to me why this is happening, and then to carry on professionally and commentate the game and talk about how Italy could still win with 2 players off the field. You know, what strategy can they employ? What are the Irish weaknesses that they could potentially employ? You know, that sort of stuff to make the game entertaining, to engage the audience about the game, to tell a story of what's happening on the field. You know, all that sort of stuff. I didn't get any of that. I just got the commentary keep telling me, basically, I shouldn't be watching this game. I should turn it off. And this is absolutely not worth watching. Just awful commentary. And it's ironic because they complain about the rules, the law, essentially ruining the game. In reality, it's their poor commentary that's causing people turning off the TV. Okay? I was really disappointed by that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. And obviously, the big drama, let's talk about that. Obviously, since the commentary didn't really explain what happened, didn't explain the history, I'll explain that everything you need to know about the situation on the field, okay? So basically what happened was Italy had an injury with their starting hooker 15 minutes into the game. He had a broken arm. They put on their reserve hooker. About 3 minutes on the field, he lands a high shot on an Irish player, and then he gets red carded. Now, the red card is 100% the correct decision. No mitigating factors. Solo shot onto the player's chin area. There's no doubt about it. It's a red card. And then as a result of both hookers being injured, Italy could not fill a suitable front row for the scrum. So when the scrum arrived, there was mass confusion because the referee starts telling the Italians they need to remove an extra player for the scrum. So Italy needs to go down to 13 players. And then this was so much confusion, even the Irish players were confused by what's going on. And Italians initially thought it was maybe like a translation issue. They just brought on an extra player, swapped out a player, so they just play with 14. And as the scrum's about to get packed, the referee stops the scrum and tells the Italians one player needs to go off. And the Italians like, why? The referee says it's the law, and basically points at the number 8, says, you, number 8, off. And then he gets ejected off the field, and there's just mass confusion on the field, off the field. All the fans were confused in the stadium. The commentators were confused because they didn't know what the rules sounded like. And then essentially, Italy had to play the remainder of the game with 13 players, and in fact went down to 12 players later on in the game due to another yellow card. But they had to play with 13 players for the remainder of the game as a result of 1 red card, right? So so instead of explaining there's a story of why this is happening. The commentator decided to spend the rest of the game complaining about the laws being wrong, the laws being bad, and the game is not worth watching, right? So let's go through the laws, have a look. Let's understand why this is happening. So first up, the law was changed in 2009. Okay, the law was changed in 2009. Before 2009, some of you guys might be old enough to remember, a team only had 12 players with 7 reserves. Instead of 8, there was only 7 reserves. And as a result, there was only 2 front row replacements. And as a result of this, 2 front row replacements, teams were starting to abuse the uncontested scrum rule. They started to put on, to get one of the front rowers to get into, to fake an injury essentially, and then put on a flanker in the front row position to abuse the fact that it's going to go to uncontested scrum, and now they have an extra flanker, essentially 4 loose forwards on the field, which gives them a huge advantage around the field with, fresh legs, extra speed, and, everything else that a flanker can bring for your team, all the advantage that an extra flanker can bring for your team. So there was way too many abuse of that going on prior to 2009. So World Rugby changed the laws. They added an extra player on the bench. So now the team is 23 players, as we have today, with 3 mandatory front row substitutions, 1 for each front row positions. And as a result, World Rugby also introduced laws to stop teams putting flankers onto the field and play with extra flanker on the field with uncontested scrummaging. So they also decided that should a team become responsible to take the scrum into uncontested, that team will also be penalized for basically not penalized. That team will have to remove a player from the field as basically a penalty, as basically a punishment, to stop players from faking an injury essentially to get to uncontested scrum, and also to stop them from putting flankers on for that extra speed and agility that a flanker brings. The front rowers has to be filled with another front row, if possible. Right? So in Italy's case, they have to put in 3 front rowers, right? Because they haven't got a hooker left, and they have to always have 8 players in the scrum, even though it was uncontested. So that one of the backs or 2 of the backs have to come in to the scrums to stop the potential abuse for some teams, faking injuries, right? Faking injuries and putting flankers on. So that's basically what happened in the late 2000s that caused the rule change, resulting in the rules that we have today, in the laws we have today, right? So the exact law is written here, right? So the exact law basically says here, if the player gets injured, just to make sure that they don't fake the injury, they will still get punished under 14 players. So in Italy's position, since the player is red carded, they're already on 14 players. They were forced to go down to 13 players. That's basically what happened. Now there are 3 exemptions to this rule. Number 1 is a blood bin. If a player has blood bin, then that player gets to then that team will not be punished. They can still play with 15 players until the blood bin player returns to the field, and then normal scrum will resume. And then the second condition is the HIA. So if a prop gets sent off for HIA, then that team will not be punished for losing a player. They will not be losing a player. They can still play with 15 players and uncontested scrums, but they still have to bring on a front row replacement. Okay, so you have to have 3 front rowers, but uncontested scrum, they don't have to take a player out. And if the only condition is, if the HIA fails, then the remainder of the game will be played as uncontested scrum. So I think this happened in 2015, Springboks versus the All Blacks, Richie McCaw's last game in South Africa. Essentially, I think there was an HIA in that game. Trevor Nyake comes on, and they basically estimated that despite the fact that he could play both sides of the prop. He was initially like assigned to play loose head, or maybe was assigned to tight head. So that was uncontested scrum. They play uncontested scrum for the remainder of that match for the last 20 minutes. But despite but the Springboks were not punished having to losing a player in the team. So that was the case where I think a HRA was involved, where the team went down to fifth. The team did not lose a player as a result of going to uncontested scrum. So that was an exception. And finally, if the injury is caused due to foul play, so if someone flips you, like spear tackles you and you hurt your neck, right? And then you go to then that team that got then the player that the team that had the player that received the injury would not get punished to go to 14 players because it's a foul play. So the team that suffered the injury can still play with 15 players on the field with uncontested scrum. So that's also the third and final situation where a uncontested scrum can happen and you can still have 15 players on the field. Any other situation, including you breaking your leg, stepping on a pothole on the field, and then you can't play anymore, you lose a player. If you can't get another hooker on the field, you lose a player. You have to play with 14 players. That's the law. So that's basically the law, guys. Hopefully I explained that. And I do think that it's really damaging for, especially the live broadcast, to bash the law of the game and telling the viewers that you shouldn't be watching this because the laws are stupid. It's not stupid. It's not stupid. There's a reason for it. And it's your job to explain that reason to the audience and continue to provide entertaining, meaningful, thoughtful commentary for the remainder of the match, and not just telling me how stupid it is and how I'm wasting my time even watching the game. In fact, they were saying things like, oh, the audience won't return. Yeah. No, that's definitely shouldn't be saying that. You definitely shouldn't be saying that. You would never hear that in a football game. You would never hear that in any other professional sport. It's so bad, so damaging, more damage than any law that's actually in the game. It's just unbelievable. Really unprofessional. So yeah, that's probably the most disappointing thing I have in the game. Overall, the game, one thing I have to say with Ireland, once again, Johnny Sexton seems to be the man for the team. He came on the field in the second half. Ireland looked, better when Johnny was on the field. And that's the review, guys. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I do appreciate it. Stay tuned for the news later on this week. And once again, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day. Cheers.